In the last lecture, we discussed about the documentation of a heritage structure, and we discussed the various steps like the condition mapping and specification, diagnosis, etc. So, today what I am planning to do is that I will just take one example, and then along with you, I will try to fill up a sort of a format and along with this example to demonstrate that initial inventory, how it is done. For that, I have taken this beautiful structure. It is actually Radha Damodar Rashmanchu, which is situated near Pashkura in East Midnapur, and it is not listed, it is not protected, it is a private property. So, let us see that suppose we have to make a preliminary inventory of the structure, what is the format and how do we go about it. So, I am following a format which is generally given by INTAC, Indian National Trust for Art and Cultural Heritage, and also along with some other modification, I am just a format is there. So, as you can see that some of the photograph or images are there of the structure, and this shows detail, it is a terracotta thing, and it is also shows the location of that. So, let us say this is the format, name and reference is the first category, and under that there are the basic information which has to be put as an input to that format. So, let us say name of the building Radha Damodar Rashmanchu, and we have to have some reference number which the person or the project people who are doing it, they can find out a system of documentation or coding other things. And so, this we have followed a system, the West Bengal WB stands for West Bengal and EM stands for East Midnapur, and this is a serial number 009. So, this is the code we have followed for this particular project. The date of compilation is absolutely important to put that when it was done. So, 12 June 2015 it was done, and it was done by myself, and with the recording organization. It can be someone who is trained, or you can train people, or you can do on your own. So, but the name and the date is absolutely important, because which state it is. The recording organization. So, in particular case we did it from IIT Kharagpur as a part of a project. So, we the State of Built Heritage Inventory or India, and INTAC, it was done by INTAC New Delhi. So, under that project we did a preliminary sort of a preliminary investigation and inventory of the projects or the structures which are not there under any list. So, this is the whoever is the organization, how it is done, it has to be put as a different cross reference to ensemble. While doing the value and significance, we did that cross reference to ensemble. So, there may be various documents. I am just giving as an example for that. In this case, we have basically followed David McCutcheon's book on late medieval temples of Bengal. It is published by Kolkata Asiatic Society. So, David McCutcheon actually did a very detailed classification of the late medieval temples of Bengal, and so we followed that, some sort of a cross referencing these type of structures, that what category, what are the characteristics, which particular subcategory it will belong to. There may be many other documents, there were many other documents. I have just followed, I have just put one as an example. Cross reference to documentation. Documentation means that also, I mean, we can sort of have some historical records or some documents or archival material also from the owner of that. So, some sort of a documentation what is there. So, that cross reference should be there with all the references and other. In this particular case in Bengal, state wise or district wise, there are a lot of inventory which has been done, not with photographs or images, but description about the structure. We have followed that, and there are quite a few books. I have just putting one book. So, one has to be very sure that which are the some sort of a documentation or source material which is there, it has to be put there. As I said, I have done 5-6 references, but I have just put it as an example. The next in category comes the location. On the location also there are various subcategory like the administrative location, country, state wise and other, the village where it is there, and the cadastral reference, the plot number which is there, whatever, and the coordinates. So, let us see in this particular case country is India, and with the mapping it has to be done. State is West Bengal, it has to be done accordingly. The district, it is Purbo Medinipur or East Midnapur, as you can see in the map that it is being shown that the location of that, and block is Pashkura block. So, is the block boundary is shown, and then in the East Midnapur district where is the block is located is shown, and then the village Manglai Shamvallabhpur. So, within that this Manglai Shamvallabhpur is located here, actually on a GIS map we did that. So, actual location is shown there. So, country, state, district, block and village, all the location should be very sequentially, systematically done. And as I told you that it also should be some sort of a cadastral reference, that what is the actually the plot number, how it is referred in the administrative documents and other. In this case we could not procure that, but we also had the GPS coordinating system. So, actual coordinating system is very important to locate it where it is. So, this is the coordinate. So, this shows about the location in a sort of a quite systematic way along with the maps. This is absolutely important to put it on the map, and nowadays GIS becomes a very important sort of a platform to document the number of structures what you are doing that. Then in category comes the functional type, and in functional type what is the heritage typology, what is the usage, and also the dating, that what is the dating, that is very important source to start with. Now, I am just giving some sort of a basic idea, and these also can be further subcategorization and other things can be there. Like in this case it is heritage typology is religious broadly, and then Rashomonsho. And also as you can see that we have also put a documentation along with that, that what is Rashomonsho and what is the significance of that Rashomonsho. So, as I say that it is from the Wikipedia, the mentioning the source is very important. There can be many other historic documents or authentic sources. In this case I have just given as an example the Wikipedia, which says the Rash Mela in West Bengal is a festival celebrating the divine love of Sri Krishna and Radha, celebrated on the full moon day in Kartik month. The Rash Leela or Rasha dance is a part of the traditional story of Krishna described in the Hindu scriptures such as the Bhagavad Purana and literature, etc., where he dances with the Radha and her Shakhis. The term Rasha means aesthetics, and the Leela meaning act or play or dance is a concept. So, it talks about that what is the concept behind the Rashomonsho, and also we have given an image and giving the source, whatever material we use, whatever information we use, because it will ultimately come as a report form, is absolutely important to give that from which source whatever it is taken. So, it is explaining that why it is really religious and what is the Rashomonsho. I think I mentioned earlier also the Rashomonsho is generally always is not independent, it always happens along with the main temple. It is where during the Rash festival the deity brought out and everybody has an access. So, it is a festival or a celebration what happens. So, this is the particular typology of the structure which this is represents. Use. Now, as we say the use is very important, it at the moment it is abundant. Even few years back the family used to use during the Rash festival, but nowadays it is abundant. You can see the structure condition of the structure later on in detail, and you can see that it is abundant, and that has caused further deterioration of the structure. So, one has to use also, I mean I have not mentioned that in that case, in many cases we will see the use also can change over the years. So, one has to also mention that what was the original use, how the use has changed, and what is the present use and other. So, as I say that at the moment it is an abundant structure. About from the dating is absolutely very important to mention the dating. Fortunately, in this particular case it was there is a clear indication, there is a plaque, terracotta plaque, as you can see that there 1859 it was built, and it is the Bengali dating system. It is written that which year it was built, and it So that is why this plaque becomes not only a decorative element, it is a documentary evidence which is very important. So, this is very important to show that from where, sometimes it can be from some other sources, some other document, or sometimes a precise date may not be available. So, there are other techniques too for the dating system. We can do that from the style, from the testing of the materials and other. So, the dating is also we have to know, and then the period, broadly under which period. So, as I say that it was David McCutcheon's work, we know that it is the late medieval time where there was this particular type of terracotta or the brick architecture developed, which is related to the sort of a particular bhakti movement which happened there, and a lot of structures happened which also shows the cross cultural references. So, the late medieval temple is the broad period, and which century is the 19th century. You can see that it's there, and sometimes we actually know from the documents that which date it is. So, absolute date can also be mentioned, but in this particular case it is not known. So, one can just clearly write that it is not known, and if it is known or something, whatever the source, one should mention clearly that what is the source of this dating. As I said that there are other ways of also finding the dating. If there are very old structures, carbon dating, different types of dating methods are possible. Now, then one has to also from the various sources find out that what is the brief history, and that also requires a lot of research and the different source material and giving references to that what it is about. So, as I say, as a part of Vaishnavite religious ritual, it was built by a private initiative, but meant for entire community during the festival, a part of a complex with a group of 3 other temples. So, a site plan also has to be done where it shows that in relation to the other temple where it is, and actually in the village where it is, and what are the surrounding condition, that also has to be drawn and particularly properly surveyed and put. Then comes the description. One also has to start with a brief description of that. As I said, that is a very preliminary investigation, and it says in the first step is a Shaptadarsh Chura or terrace, total 17 in number or almost intact. So, these Chura or terrace, that is referring to David McCutcheon's book, that is a very significant feature. There can be different numbers of terrace, 10, 11, 12, 13, 17 and others. So, this comes under a particular category where 17 terraces were there on the top of this, and there are also further subdivision or sub classifications are there, which again can be referred to. But as I say, and it is also very important that when we are making a statement and or some classification, we have to refer because of which document or which is the source of this classification system, why we are saying that, and also give a photographic or other archival material documentation and numbering. Each and everything has to be numbered and properly referred. So, I have shown an example that each and everything has to be referred and that. So, description says, so are the turrets are in a very good condition, and so are the terracotta decorations with scenes from mythology and Purans. So, all over this Rashmanchu there are terracotta plaques which shows the various mythological scenes and depiction of that from the Purans and others, and these also when really starts documenting each and every plaque has to be documented, numbered, and their condition has to be assessed. As I say, this is just an example of a very preliminary investigation, not a full documentation which should come after this. Information plaque giving the date of construction and name of the founder. As I say that this is a very important part of this, that documentation, that this is not only just a part of the decoration, it is a very documentary evidence. So, keeping that there in the location is absolutely important, and this has to be highlighted and with a proper numbering, position, location, and also taking a very detailed and very close photograph or image of that. Some of the figurines show distinct European influence in hairstyle, costumes and styles. As you can see that, I mean, they are also on the rooftop, there are various figurines there. You can show that the European influence has already come up there, and a lot of that, the hairstyle, the dresses, the hats, and the things they are there, which is generally on the rooftop. So, one can access the rooftop, and these are a very unique feature of that, where these type of cross cultural things were happening. But to find some in a small village, to find this type of structure with this type of craftsmanship and this influence, it makes this structure very unique on a very high standard. And we can go on, there can be many other documents. So, as we can say that we have to clearly identify in the description that what are, we will continue with the description highlights. So, like the multifoil arch with high quality stucco work in lime is exquisite and good condition. As you said that though there are certain things, but there are these type of work which is very typical of that time, it is very extraordinary work. So, multifoil arch, which also shows a cross cultural reference, not only the European reference, but also the influence of the Mughal architecture, what was happening all over India that time, and also this inside work, this detail work, they are quite a good condition. And this was done with the lime, and this was a particular types of craftsmanship which developed and flourished in the temples that time, and they are in quite a good state. The rotable wooden platform. So, I just mentioned that what are the highlights. The rotable wooden platform for the deity can still be. So, inside the structure there was these rotable wooden sort of a platform which has a sort of a mechanism, and it still can be rotated. So, that when the deity is there, Radha and Krishna, it sort of rotates. So, it can be viewed from all the sides. So, that is a very, again a very unique feature, and that is there, even now it is there, and it is quite functioning. So, it can be revived. The roof is accessible through staircase hidden in plinth and walls. This is a very interesting feature. You generally do not see the staircase, but when you go inside, that within the wall thickness, and many of the structures that time had this wall thickness, there is a staircase which goes under the plinth, and then one can climb up to the roof, and it is very good because then it makes the roof accessible. So, the repair and maintenance becomes very easy. Is possible, and still it is there. It's, as you can see, that it is not in a very good condition because it has not been attended in a very recent time, and due to the neglect or due to the financial constraint, but the staircase is also a very important feature of that. And vandalism. So, what is very sort of a concern about this temple is a lot of vandalism is happening. There is no protection. The owners sometimes stay there, and they do not have the capacity to maintain that. So, what we found, it is really something very unfortunate. The people are coming there and they are destroying, as I say, that vandalism, and the broken pieces are there. So, what the local community is trying to keep at least the local pieces, shifting them and keeping them in a proper place, so that it can be restored. So, the major problem here is the vandalism and the neglect, or the intention may be there, but the capacity or probably the ability is not there to do that for whatever. We will discuss that. So, as I say, the description, the major points, it has to be not a very lengthy description, but a very concise way, brief, along with the documents, the photographic evidence, drawings and other thing. One has to mention that what are the major features of that. Then we have to really sort of a data inventory, that is very important, that how do we put the data. Again, I have said that I followed some of the thing, that what are the persons and organization. In this particular case, it is very simple, but sometimes it can be much more complicated. But let us say the persons and the organization who are either staying there, using there, or owning that. So, name, their role, and as I say, the multiple stakeholders can be involved. The date, I mean from which day to which day somebody was using it, the ownership also could have changed over the year. So, it is very important to record that and find out authentically what are the sources, and then also we have to talk about that what are the building materials and others. So, let us see, in this case the persons, the Maiti family, and there is also one must take care of that, the name of the person, the contact person who actually owns that. This also has to be sort of a documented there for further reference of future work. And then the role. So, in this case it is the owner, sometimes they can be tenants, sometimes they are the occupant. So, there can be many more possibilities of that, and the ownership can change over the year. So, one has to document that. So, as I say, I have in this particular case, this is only one family, it was under them, with them, is in their ancestral property. But one can have a situation where the occupier changes over the years. So, from which date to which day, which period to which period, who was the occupier in the on the how it changes, that also based on some authentic inquiry and documentation, that also is good to, it is necessary to put that as an inventory. Next come to the building materials and the technique, that because it is not only how it look beautiful or it is religious, one has to have a good understanding of what is the materials and what is the technique of construction. And that has to be divided into, I think when the documentation we have sort of talked about a detailed list about that. So, we will talk about the component wise what is there. I have just given some of the example, the main component, the walls, roofs and plaster and other thing. So, in this particular case, generally the brick, terracotta and lime, they are generally used, mainly they are used there as a building material. So, walls were made of brick and lime mortar and terracotta tiles. You can see here very clearly the bricks, the pointing has needs pointing and they are not in a good condition. The weathering has been done, even from a preliminary investigation it is easy to understand that, and the terracotta tiles were there, which we have seen there. The roof is lime concrete. So, most of the times there, so it can be tested with non-destructive, and it can be also seen that what is the condition, present condition of that lime concrete roof, that also has to be assessed. The plaster is always the lime plaster, the most of the traditional thing. Fortunately, in this structure there was no repair work which was not compatible. I talked about that sometimes people use the cement mortar, and that is a stronger material and that caused further damage to the structure. In this particular case that was not been done, but as you can see that the original plasters were there, but they are in many of the places they are no longer there. So, they had deteriorated, and that has exposed the brick structure inside, the brick columns and the pilasters which are there, they are now more vulnerable to the structure. So, these type of damage, I am not talking about condition mapping, the condition mapping has to be a detailed documentation of that. This is a preliminary investigation, but one can still go, and it just does not take much time to do this. Then comes the physical condition, that the state of the conservation condition, state of the conservation, what state actually this is from overall status, the structural stability and the level of intervention. This is again I am saying very briefly preliminary investigation and documentation. In this particular case, the state of conservation, we made a remark that shows signs of deterioration and fungus attack. We have seen this example earlier also, the different types of fungus attacks which are happening, and there is very clear, and one has to further take care of that, what is the condition and why it is happening and what can be the preventing measure or the remedial measures for this. As for the structural stability, structurally it is quite stable, there is no major crack as such, and it is only that some sort of a weathering has happened and the vandalism and the neglect has happened. Structurally, from the preliminary investigation it shows that not sort of a collapse. Some other examples we have seen that were probably quite recently when the family was taken care of. So, it does not look like, but this cannot continue. The level of intervention, and that is also, as I say, that though it has not been sort of a repair, some of the portions are there, but fortunately no repair work has been done in recent time. It's whatever is there is authentically maintained, no sort of a desirable type of repair has happened there, but as you can see that very strong sort of marks of deteriorations are setting in, and it needs immediate interventions. But this is just, before coming to the suggestion, this is just a description along with more and more photographic documentation, location wise and properly numbering the photographs, one has to do a complete documentation of these structures. Now, after this is being done, then as I say that I have just very sort of summarizing what is there, it has to be a little more detailed report, but one then also has to summarize that what is the distinctive and significant features, because these data and all these things are there to say that why it's sort of there are so many structure, what is the distinctive feature of this particular structure. So, this is one of the multifoil arches, you can still see the lime plaster which is there, and this is the day such of decoration, and the Purans and other thing on the terracotta, and the plasters are still intact many of the places. So, we are summarizing all sort of a distinctive features. Let us see what can be the distinct features of this. So, the first and foremost which sort of comes there is the high quality terracotta decorations and information plaque giving the dates and name of the founder, that comes the first and foremost thing. Then the multifoil arch with high quality stucco work in lime, and terrace, as we said initially, the total 17 in number are Pira style or example of Orisan influence of Nagara architecture, not very common in Midnapur. So, that is by referring the other documents and others. So, we have seen that it is quite uncommon. So, that makes it this particular structure quite distinctive and quite unique. The staircase almost hidden in the plinth is also quite unusual. I mean, one cannot make out where is the things, it goes under the plinth. So, these are some of the things one can summarize, that what are the distinctive features along with the proper photographic and the reference and comments. Then we have to finally assess that this is have to go back to our value, the statement of the value and significance, that what is the value or the significance of that. I have just mentioned something, but one has to put a description or statement to support that. So, what we wrote there is an architecture, it is a very high quality architecture, and also the religious and social value is there, but architecturally definitely, as we have said, the 17 terrace, the terracotta decorations and the lime, the staircase. So, that has to be put together to say that what is the cultural, what level of this is there. And other related category, we also have to say that what are the related category, like landscape association, it is associated with a particular festival and others. So, again one has to sort of elaborate this a little further with the statement, but this has to be very clearly stated that under which category, which types of value it is coming. Then comes this also the status, the level of heritage awareness, because if one has to proceed further, one has to find out that what is happening. So, it is good because the people are quite aware this of the heritage. There is a sacred association, there is a quite good awareness about the structure, people are aware of that. The mystery of skilled labours and traditional knowledge is still there, but they need some sort of an upgradation or some sort of a specific intervention or training or capacity building to there, but they are still there. And then comes the threats, that one has to also talk about that what are the threats are there and what are the socio-economic issues, and because as I say is the past, present and future, we also have to see that what can be the future possibility of that, what is the role of this structure, one has to also take that into in the sort of make some suggestion and ideation about that what can be done. So, as we say that here the threat is basically human induced and high level of vandalism that is happening, and why this is happening, this is something is very concerned that it's a private property, but why this is happening when the people are still aware and they are concerned about that this. So, socio-economic and reuse potential, that our sort of based on that one has to say that okay, it should be documented or it should be. So, we came to the conclusion that it must be restored. It's an unique, many of the structures are there, but it must be restored, and it's possible to restore back to the original glory. And maybe used for, now talking about the use, what is the role of that in future, because the owner, they are not sort of much interested, they do not have the ability to do that. It is not that they are not interested, they do not have the capacity. So, maybe used for community festival, we have to find out that okay, what can it be used for. So, we thought maybe used for the community festivals as originally meant for, along with some associated activities like musical performance, kirtan and other, which is related with the Vaishnavite thing, folk festivals, it can become a focus of the community festival related and which are compatible with the sacred value. That has to be very important, not any type of cultural activity, which has to be some sort of a related, so it can become a focus. So, inter-community should again come back to look to that. So, we have to probably take out the 2 days events of a year from that, whether we can make it some sort of a more useful to the community. Then comes also the management. See, this is a very important part, that what is the protection status, ownership, what will happen to that, what is the mechanism which are there available for regulation, what can be the security measure. This is very important in that case. So, at the moment we know that is unprotected, is not listed. So, there is no type of, so but we feel that is part of the main temple complex, set a little away, it is an outside. As per the usual practice, as a Rashmanchi is used basically as a temporary resting place for deity during the festival and is open to the public. So, this is very important sort of to find out, summarize about the protection status. The ownership, we know that is private and it owned to that, whether that should change, whether some other sort of a common sort of shared thing can be emerge, can be formulated, is very easy, important to understand that. The owners are not capable to maintain and manage. So, one has to the local panchayat bylaws. So, what are the legal tools which are available? We have the local panchayat bylaws, and what is very important, we have the West Bengal Heritage Commission Act, which can take care of such heritage structure provided it is listed, and they can extend the sense of technical and financial help. And the security, yes, it is actually poor, and that is this type of vandalism happen. So, then one has to make some recommendation and observation in the summary of that. So, legal protection, we suggested that it is recommended for national level, but at the same time we know that ASI is overburdened, it cannot do that. Otherwise, we also say that some authentic repair is required, and pilot project, it can be taken as a pilot project for the restoration by INTAC local chapter or Delhi chapter, and then so that it also can show the others that train in that process as a part of a capacity building. So, it also can sort of play as a pathfinder and a training, organizing the training on site and training the people there. And what are the maintaining guidelines? So, also one has to know some sort of a guidelines have to evolve even after the things, that what is the maintenance, which is not applicable for only this structure, but can be in general for similar structures. And fencing, we have understood that this needs a sort of a security, there needs a site improvement, it needs a lighting, and the more important that the capacity building involving the community. Though it was a private property, we have realized that it now has to sort of become a part of the community. Why it is very important? Because then the people themselves will protect that, and this type of vandalism will not take place. So, that taking it from the along with the private owners, it can become sort of a part of the community. They will sort of have to become aware, it will sort of contribute to their life, and it will also become a place of pride, and they involved in the repairing that and take the responsibility to protect that. So, these also can become a part of this. So, capacity building involving the community becomes a very important role. And what are the financial, where does the finance come from? So, we know that technical know-how is very important, but loan, grant, subsidy, tax rebate, giving the private owner some sort of a tax rebate or donation, there are many ways it can be done. So, there are, we said that there has to be some incentive to maintain it. So, now we know that, so this is an example where we have just taken one example, and then we have said that what can be done, and we still know that we have not done the measure drawing for that, we have not done the condition mapping, the problem identification, it needs a further investigation of that, the intervention option and conservation strategy. So, that will be the second stage. Doing the measure drawing and the condition mapping, where actually what happened. So, this is the first, because for the entire district we had done sort of a quite, and it is possible to do it. It does not take much time to do this type of investigation, to prioritize that. For us, this became a very important structure, which can play a lot of role in the capacity building and show the community what can be done, and it has that potential. And then the next step is to go towards that. Now, after discussing that, I would like you also to do something like that. So, what is your task? Your task is to find an unlisted heritage structure, which you think a heritage. It can be any type, temple, a house, or a small structure, whatever, which is located near your place, which is accessible to you. Find an unlisted heritage structure and prepare an initial inventory, almost like following the format which we have discussed as for that. and post it in the discussion forum and discussion page of this course. Send that to us, then we will react, and then all of us can discuss about that. In that process, you will learn that how to make the preliminary investigation of unlisted heritage structures, and to prioritize that which of these structures can be taken to the next step, which is the further condition mapping investigation and others. After discussing that, I think that you have some idea about that. So, in our next lecture, we will talk about that actually 2 case studies, which shows that how the investigation is a very important part to see that the diagnosis and to decide a conservation strategy. That is the next lecture. Thank you.